When the man from another place, or the arm, tells Agent Cooper in the dream that Laura Palmer is his cousin, or he doesn't say it's Laura Palmer because we just presume it is, because he actually says it's not Laura Palmer. He says she looks like Laura Palmer, but he says she's my cousin. So he seems to be offering a symbolic clue about his relationship to Venus or Aphrodite, of which Laura is the embodiment of, at least in the context of this dream sequence. Now, the arm, being her cousin, infers that our ferryman or messenger in red here is an amalgam of Hermes, Pan, and Dionysus, which all hold a classic association. These deities hold an association as guides for the journey of the unconscious, as well as magicians and healers. Hermes is the spiritual successor of the Egyptian deity Thoth or Thoth. And the god of the moon, meditating the feminine and the masculine, as well as the god of wisdom, magic, science, and judgment. So don't forget that the arm was touched by the devilish one through, presumably through Mike's tattoo. So the arm was born into this purgatory world through the death of Mike's limb. It's the sort of thing you would learn about in mythology, like the manhood of Uranus being chopped off, thrown into the water, resulting in Aphrodite's birth from the sea foam. So there's this really interesting connection with the man from another place of the arm and his presumed creation from, he's created from the dismemberment of a certain body part. So it's a very interesting connection. So when I found this statue, in my research, I found this statue of an infant Dionysus being held by the left arm of Hermes. I couldn't help but think of Mike's relationship to the arm as both quite obviously messenger and mediator in the story of Twin Peaks. Now, what I found after digging along this line of possibilities was really interesting. So we're about to see what this little interesting thing I found is, and I think you're going to like it. But first, I just want to say, to me, and I want to comment on the ring a little bit, because, you know, it doesn't appear in Twin Peaks this early by the third episode, but I do want to touch on the ring just because we have this, we've set the scene for the arm being this Hermes type character. So to me, the ring seems analogous to the staff of Hermes, or the caduceus, which is the staff that Hermes carries. You can see that on the upper left there. Especially the more ancient depictions of Hermes, which resemble the alchemical symbol for Hermes or Mercury, shown there in the upper right-hand corner above the owl. It's a symbol of the delicate balance as well as the movement between two worlds, which is not an affair to be taken lightly or done carelessly, lest one risk their ultimate destruction. And we know all too well the ring's association with and what happens to those who handle the ring that don't know what the heck they're doing. Of course, we cannot forget the significance of the owls in Twin Peaks, as they are not what they seem, as is said, of course, a few times in the show. Like Hermes, the owl is the embodiment of a messenger of the unconscious, a creature which sees everything as it traverses the darkness. It is not just traveling in the night, but it is also feeding. The owl is a predator. In a certain sense, it's almost as if the owl is the harbinger of the darkness which will one day consume us all. This is at least one important aspect of the Black Lodge, the aspect that involves our own mortal and very fragile existence. So, in a very real sense, the Arm, or this Hermes-type character, is a facilitator, is a messenger, is a carrier of this delicate balance between two worlds. I'm going to get more into the ring a little bit later, but check this out. I found something really interesting. Now, we're going to explore the significance of the ring in greater detail, as it's not really featured in Twin Peaks in the first season. It's really not featured until the movie. So once we get through the TV series, we'll circle back to the Owl Cave ring in more detail. I just wanted to make that connection between the Arm and Mike as spirit messengers. Now, the shadow. Let's talk about the shadow for a minute here. The shadow in this scene can be interpreted in many ways, of course. It can be interpreted as an owl. It signals the journey between worlds, like Hermes embodied by the Arm. It also signals the dual nature of the Aphrodite archetype, of which Laura seems to represent. Somehow both characters share a special connection to one another. That's pretty obvious. Now, also notice that each character has a spotlight overhead, especially the Arm and Laura. The descendant, now if you look at this shadow, the descendant phase of this mysterious shadow's movement, or what strikes me as some sort of eclipse, it first moves downward in the region where the Arm is seated. This indicates that the Arm is indeed an intermediary figure concerned with the underworld, darkness, the Black Lodge, death, that sort of thing. Then the shadow moves upward in the region above Laura and to the right of the Venus statue, which in my mind denotes the supernal world of light, which admittedly I extrapolated from the prequel film, which we'll get into later. However, we must not forget that these worlds are indeed not really separate at all, as the shadow is showing us. Similar to Plato's allegory of the cave, we can see the shadow but are unable to identify the actual object. And to me, this seems rather intentional. Now, I didn't forget about the weird stuff Laura does in this scene either. The fingertip on one side of the nose strikes me as possibly a reference to snorting cocaine, as it is revealed later by Agent Rosenfeld that Laura had an addiction to the white stuff. That's no big secret. She had a similar look after ditching James to hang out with her degenerate associates on the night of her murder as well. Now, another explanation is that it may be interpreted as the secret sign used by the Bookhouse Boys, a secret fraternal order in Twin Peaks sworn to fight evil. However, this sign from Laura is not at all the same as the Bookhouse Boys' secret gesture. Or perhaps then maybe she is communicating that the Arm's erratic shaking is related to his own addiction. Of course, anything in Twin Peaks that may seem even mildly symbolic may also just be Lynch's intuitive sense of ambiguity, since he does like to interweave meaning with meaninglessness. So this may mean nothing at all, which is really a beautiful idea if you think about it, because if we stop our obsession with meaning, even for a brief moment, the creative possibilities, the creative possibilities can take us anywhere. It's like when we stop trying, all of a sudden things come to us that we didn't realize before. Now, this part of the dream, when the Arm mentions that gum you like is going to come back in style, likely isn't actually directed at Agent Cooper specifically, but it makes me think that perhaps this line was merely devised as some sort of surreal icebreaker. And perhaps later on, someone must have recycled this chewing gum line, in season 2, episode 9, when the old man in the roadhouse tells Leland that gum you like is going to come back in style, to which Leland says that was his favorite gum when he was a kid. We have to remember that David Lynch actually left the production of Twin Peaks after episode 7 of season 2, and in a Vanity Fair article, Lynch made the following comment about how things went in season 2 midway. Quote, "It got very stupid and goofy in the second season. It got ridiculous. I stopped watching that show because it got so bad," end quote. So the whole thing about the gum, you like coming back in style, I don't really see that as all too terribly significant. Now, Lynch, of course, was not happy about the prospects of ruining Twin Peaks, although that's what typically happens to almost anything that gains any degree of popularity, which is further evidence to me that the line about the chewing gum has been given far more significance and meaning than it actually deserves.